Hi everyone, and welcome to this edition of ExecuNet Masterclass. I'm your host, Tony Vlahos, and my guest this hour is renowned career coach, Mr. Ford Myers. Whether you're applying for a new position or up for your annual review, talking about money with an employer might feel a bit awkward, but coming to terms that work for both sides is crucial. Ford joins us today to share insight that can help you master the rules of the negotiation game and make a quantum leap in your salary. Really important stuff, and part of our commitment here at ExecuNet to connect you with higher value thinking that can elevate your career, your work, and your life. So let's begin at the beginning with a few housekeeping things that will make your experience today all the more enjoyable and valuable. First, by now you should have received the PowerPoint deck for today's presentation. Many of you are nodding. Yes, I can tell. That's great. If you're sure you have not, of course, you can access the slides in PDF directly from the screen in front of you. Just look under the handout section on your right, and of course, if you have any trouble, email my amazing colleague Kim, and she will help you. Second, if you'd like to ask Ford questions today, and I certainly encourage you to do that, please chat those in, and I'll do my best to relay as many as possible to him before the end of the presentation. Finally, very important, please complete your evaluation before you leave. Our presenter values your feedback, and we do too. It really does help us serve you better. I am really happy to introduce today's presenter. Ford Myers is an award-winning career coach and president of Career Potential. Since 1992, he has been a leading provider of executive career coaching services. Ford has held senior consulting positions at 3 of the largest career service firms. His articles and interviews have appeared in hundreds of publications, and he has conducted presentations at many companies, associations, and universities. Ford has also been a frequent guest on television and radio shows nationwide. In 2014, he won the, quote, Human Resource Consultant of the Year award. Pretty phenomenal. Ford is also an author of a couple of books, Get the Job You Want Even When No One's Hiring, and The Ultimate Career Guide. Welcome, Ford, to the ExecuNet stage. They are all yours.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. It's so nice to be here again, and I want to welcome everyone to the call. You know, this topic of compensation is a tough one. It causes a lot of people to get nervous, to be confused, to feel overwhelmed. It's one of those topics that we just don't ever get taught in school. We're not taught on the job, and a lot of people are simply mystified. They're confused and they're mystified by the whole subject, and they often have a nagging feeling inside that they're perhaps not making the amount of money that they should be making and not able to negotiate as successfully as they might like. So I really have a lot of empathy for people because it is, in fact, kind of overwhelming and confusing. And some of the topics I'm going to be discussing here today and some of the strategies I'll be sharing may seem a bit controversial to you. In fact, they might seem sort of out of the box. But I want you to understand that these strategies have been tried and true. They have been proven over many years working with hundreds, even thousands of clients. Now, do these strategies work every single time? Of course not. But after learning the field, studying everything available on the subject, and practicing this for decades, I can honestly say that the strategies we're going to share here today are the best of the business. That's the best that's available, and I believe that if you stick to these strategies and actually commit to them and use them and try them out, that you may be very, very surprised, pleasantly surprised, with the results that you can get. So the question I have for everyone on the line is, why is it that so many people have trouble negotiating for their compensation? You know, it seems that we have no trouble negotiating for a car or negotiating for a house, but when it comes to our own compensation, it gets a lot more complicated, doesn't it? Why? It's because we have a psychological layer. It has to do with our self-perception and our self-esteem. It has to do with how we value ourselves and all kinds of internal messages that we tell ourselves. So I can understand why someone might find it much, much easier to negotiate for the price of a house or a car than they can the price of their own compensation. So let's take a look here, and you'll notice that the subtitle of this topic today is The Rules of the Game. negotiating your compensation, the rules of the game. Now, why do we call it a game? The answer is this. It is a game. Negotiating for salary and compensation is a game. There are rules, there are guidelines, there are structures to follow, just like in any other game. If you were to sit down with a very experienced cards player, like poker, for example, and if you were not very experienced, you would tend to lose the game because they know the rules, they're very polished and practiced, and you're not. And so in this game, you want to be as prepared and practiced as possible before you go into any negotiations. So it is the rules of the game. It's the kind of thing where if we treat it as a game, it can actually be fun and it can actually be very, very rewarding. Now, I know that compensation is a very serious topic. It has to do with our standard of living. It has to do with our family and our family's welfare. And I understand all that. But honestly, if you think of it as a game, you'll actually have some fun with it and have a lot more success instead of being always so nervous and overwhelmed. So the point I want to make starting off is that you need to begin your negotiation actually before you get to the interview. Most people think of negotiation that it happens well after the fact, after you've been through a couple of interviews and so forth, and that's true. However, the negotiation actually, in my opinion, starts much sooner. I believe that you need to start out the negotiation from the very first contact, because the minute the company contacts you or the recruiter contacts you, you're going to be setting a certain impression or a precedent. They're going to be getting a certain feeling about you and an opinion about you, which they form very quickly. My point here is that you've got to watch yourself right from the very beginning and build your value right from the start. So you begin your negotiation during the networking, and as you get toward the interview, you'll be building your value. So as you can see on this slide, page 4, it's try to enter the process via networking or an executive recruiter rather than through an online application or through human resources. Experience has shown over and over again that if you can enter the process through networking, which is best, or perhaps through an executive recruiter, which might be second best, then you'll be in a better situation to build your perceived value as compared to coming through an online application. You certainly want to impress the person you're networking with or interviewing with how prepared you are, how organized, how professional you are. You definitely want to articulate your value. This is no time to be shy. Now, we're not talking about boasting and bragging, but we are talking about stating facts. If you have real accomplishments to share, then share them. If you have real successes to discuss, then discuss them. Don't be shy. If you don't sell yourself, then nobody's going to sell yourself. Also, you want to, in conversation, try to uncover the company's issues, and also through research, you can find out what are their pain points. The more you're armed with that information, the better. If you can do some upfront research, like I say, identify the company's issues through research and discussion, then you'll be well positioned by the time the networking happens or the interview happens. Once you do understand their pain points, you will certainly want to tie your strengths and experiences directly to the company's needs and problems. This is a huge, huge strategy that I really want you to understand. You've got to find out the company's needs and their challenges, and then tie your strengths and experiences directly to those needs and challenges. You'll need to have your prepared accomplishment stories, and you'll be able to tell your accomplishment stories in direct response to the company's stated needs. Obviously, the stronger you come out of the interview, the stronger your negotiation position will be. So let's pretend that you've jumped ahead a few steps and now you've got the offer. Congratulations. But that's not the end of the game, that's the beginning. Because your real objective is not simply to get an offer, but your objective is actually to get the right job for the right compensation for the right reasons. This is important to understand. People will tell me, oh, I got a job, I'm so happy, and then we'll start talking about the offer, and we find out that it's not really a very good fit, it's not the right compensation, and they're taking it for all the wrong reasons. So make sure that any job offer you get and any job you actually accept will meet these 3 criteria. Okay, now this word fit is huge. This is a word that only 3 letters, but it's the most important word in the whole negotiation game. we really need to focus on fit. It's not just about money, it's about fit. If you look at this list, you will certainly see that compensation is part of fit, but it's not the whole story. You've got to be thinking about the location, the industry, product or service, the headquarters, or is it a remote office? What is the size of the company? What are their revenues? What's their reputation or their respect or prestige in the marketplace? These are all things you've got to be thinking about, and you've got to know your priorities. So when you're thinking about a job offer, before the offer and after the offer, make sure that you find out if it's a good fit for you or not. Further items are pace. Is it formal or informal? What are the people like? What are the relationships like? What's the physical environment, culture, values, mission? All these things are hugely important when you're trying to decide if a company is a good fit for you and if the job is going to be the right match. Now, this phrase might seem pretty obvious. Professionals negotiate professionally, but I really want to underscore this because some people think that they're not really expected to negotiate, and I always find that strange. You are expected to negotiate. In fact, when you're at an executive or professional level, I believe that the employer will actually be disappointed if you don't negotiate. They expect you to negotiate, they're ready for you to negotiate, and if you don't, they might actually question the fact that they're making you the offer in the first place. Negotiating will establish your credibility. It shows that you have essential business skills so that when you actually get into the job, you'll use the same tough negotiating skills and bargaining abilities that you used when you first applied for the position and negotiated your compensation. They want savvy, tough business people. They want people who can negotiate from a position of strength when it's necessary. Negotiation also conveys professionalism, and it sets the right precedent before you even begin the job. So yes, you must negotiate. Please don't be one of these people who says, oh, well, I don't really have to do that. I'll just accept whatever they offer me. No. I don't really care how much they offer you. You've got to negotiate. There are many misconceptions about negotiating, or what I call self-limiting fears. These are the items that I've discovered that keep people from negotiating. These are the internal messages they carry around inside their mind which prevent them from getting top dollar. What are they? Well, the first one is they're afraid that they will seem too pushy or demanding, or they're afraid that they'll seem ungrateful just for getting a job offer if they try to negotiate. Also, if they negotiate, they fear that they might be identified as a high-maintenance prima donna and not a team player. They're also afraid that if they negotiate now and get more money, it might make future raises and promotions more difficult to get in the future. And then they're afraid that they'll start off this work relationship on a bad note. And finally, they actually fear losing the offer and they might not get another chance. In other words, they feel desperate. These are all fear-based. These are useless fears. They are inaccurate. And if you've been carrying around these beliefs inside your head, please purge them now. These things are not accurate, and they will only hold you back. Yes, negotiating is a serious business. I know that. But as I said earlier, it's also a game. And in my decades of working as an executive career coach with individual clients, I want you to know that I have identified 21 rules, not 20, not 23, 21 rules of the game. Like any game, you've got to know the rules. And once you learn these rules, you can be infinitely more successful in your negotiations and also, of course, commanding higher compensation. By the way, these rules are to be used with the employer, not with an external recruiter. Please understand, we're talking about rules that are to be used with the employer directly, not with an external recruiter. So let's begin. We're going to go over these rules right now rather briefly and quickly. Number one, do extensive salary research, preparation, and practice beforehand. Please do not walk into the interview blind with no data, no information, no research. That's just suicide. You've got to be fully prepared, do your research, and always practice your negotiation skills extensively before you ever walk into the interview. Number two, defer salary discussions until an offer seems imminent. This is one of the biggest problems. A recruiter or an employer actually, an employer will start off conversation using salary as a screening mechanism, and they will simply say, so what did you make last year? Or what are you looking to earn? So you can't do that. You can't get into that conversation until an offer seems imminent, which obviously means later in the game. Usually in the second or third interview, money should come up. Number 3, discuss salary only with the ultimate decision maker. Here's another problem. You get called by some lower level assistant in the department, and they want to know your salary, but they don't have any authority. They can't make the hiring decision. So what you want to do is always hold off on any salary discussions until you're talking with the ultimate decision maker. Number 4, try to get the employer to state a salary, figure, or range first. It's, again, like a game of poker. You don't want the other guy to see your cards, but you would sure like to see their cards. Have them lay out their cards first. Try to get the employer to state the salary figure or a range first. Then you know where you stand. Then you can negotiate upward from there. Number 5, wait until an offer is extended to you before negotiating. Some people almost negotiate against themselves. They start negotiating way too early, and my point here is to wait until you actually have an offer before you start to negotiate the compensation. Number 6, discuss salary only after you have fully described your relevant accomplishments. This means, how can they decide what to pay you if they don't even know what they're buying? They can't know what they're buying unless you have a chance to tell all of your accomplishment stories, or at least the ones that are relevant to this position. So make sure that you have a full opportunity to sell yourself, to build your value, and to add the perception of all the wonderful things you're going to contribute before you start talking about money. Number 7, know your strategy before attending the negotiation meeting. By strategy, what I mean here is know exactly how much you're willing to accept and how much you're not. Also know what, in your mind, would be a decent compensation, fair compensation, versus an excellent compensation. You should know before you walk in other words, what's your bottom line, what you're willing to walk away unless they give you the right number, and you should also, you would consider it to be a great compensation package. So that's your strategy. Number 8, always negotiate the offer no matter how good it seems initially. I always kid around with clients and I say, look, I don't care if they offered you $20 million. That means they probably have $30 million. My point is, always negotiate. The number that an employer offers to you first is usually the lowest number they can possibly utter without feeling completely embarrassed. The point is, this is a trial balloon. They're testing you. They almost always have more money. They just want to see where you'll say yes, where you'll buckle. So please, folks, always negotiate the offer, no matter how good it seems initially. Number 9, finalize the salary first before negotiating other items such as benefits. Now again, I always kid around with my clients and I say to them, you can't eat benefits, so make sure you get the salary figured out first. That's what's going to pay your bills. Negotiate the salary and negotiate it hard. Once you get that settled, then you can talk about other things like, benefits, health care, commuting costs, cell phone and laptop, or whatever it is that you want to negotiate for. Number 10, never misrepresent your former salary. This is also known as lying. Please, please don't do that. You'd be amazed how many people do this, and it always backfires. It will always come back to bite you. When they ask about your salary, you should have a number in mind, which is your real salary, not your total compensation. If they talk about total compensation, then you should have a number in mind, which is total compensation. But they are two different things. So number 11, don't confuse salary with the full compensation package. If they say to you, for example, Sarah, we're prepared to offer you a $150,000 package. Well, that's great, except that's a package. What is the actual base salary? They might be embarrassed when they finally tell you that the base salary is only $60,000 and the rest is all, commissions or bonuses. So make sure you understand exactly what the base salary is, separate from the full compensation package. Number 12, avoid tying your potential salary to your old salary. This is really, really important, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more later. Here's the point. No matter what you made in your last job, You're probably thinking, oh, I hope I can get the same in a new position, or maybe I can even get 5 or 10% more, all of which is wrong. My point is, don't even consider your last salary. It has nothing to do with the salary of the new job. It's a different situation, different company, different job, different culture, different product, different service, different time. So it's totally different. Please don't tie your upcoming or future salary to your old salary. Number 13, use silence as one of your most powerful negotiating tools. Silence is so powerful because everyone in business hates it. Nobody likes silence in a business meeting or a business discussion. It makes them uncomfortable, which is good because you can use that to your advantage. Silence is your most powerful negotiating tool. Number 14, fit is more important than financial compensation, as we discussed before. Number 15, if you have more than one offer, certainly leverage one against the other. I've had clients with even 3 offers, in some rare cases 4 offers around the same time. So if you're lucky enough to have more than one offer, and I know that not everyone gets that, but if you can get 2 or more offers around the same time, then certainly you will want to leverage one against the other so that you can build up and get the highest compensation you can. Number 16, be patient and disciplined throughout the process. Patient and disciplined. I know that this whole process can be very difficult. It can drive you crazy. There's a lot of waiting. There's a lot of anxiety, and I certainly understand that because I've been through this hundreds of times. My point here is, though, you have to sort of take over and get yourself in charge. Be patient, be disciplined, never seem desperate or rushed, no matter what your situation is. Number 17, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. I've had people come back to me after they were hired, and they say, Ford, there's another guy who has the same job that I have in the company, except he's making more money than I am, and that's not right. To which I usually say, well, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. He probably negotiated better than you did. So make sure that you have top-notch negotiation skills. You don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. Number 18, never accept or reject an offer on the spot. Do a thorough analysis. No matter how good the offer seems, never accept or reject it right there in the interview. Believe me, when you're at an interview, you're nervous. You have a million things going through your mind at the same time. You're concerned about saying the right things and performing in the right way. So when you leave the interview, you will always think of questions and things that you forgot to bring up at the interview itself. Make sure you give yourself some time to do a thorough analysis, and then you'll get back to them with your response. Number 19, you can only win at negotiation if you're willing to walk away. Again, just like a house, just like a car. You have to be willing to say, sorry, not good enough, and you leave. Literally get up and walk away and excuse yourself, or say, I'm sorry, it's just not what I was looking for. You have to know, they have to know that you're serious about this. They have to sense from you that you're willing to walk away if the offer isn't good enough. If they have this sense that you're desperate or that you'll accept pretty much any compensation, then you have no negotiating power. The power comes from your willingness to walk away, and moreover, it comes from their understanding and their perception that they know you're willing to walk away. Number 20, be sure the compensation package you finally accept is a win-win. What I mean by this is, I've met some people who are extremely, extremely strong negotiators, almost too strong. You know, they're like a pit bull or like a boxer in the ring. They fight so hard and they demand high compensation, and they might even get it. But at the end of the day, is that a win-win? Do you feel good about it? Probably. But does the employer feel good about it? If the employer doesn't feel good about it, then you're setting yourself up for a bad situation. Make sure that even if you negotiate the compensation package up, that you still walk away with a win-win. The employer has to feel that they win too. They have to feel that even though you were savvy and very businesslike and very successful in your negotiations, that you didn't really take advantage of the situation, and that it's a win-win, it's a fair fight. Let's look at number 21. Maintain a positive, upbeat attitude and always enjoy the game. Now, I know some of you are thinking, he's crazy. What does he mean, enjoy the game? I hate this. I would rather get root canal. Well, you know what? I don't agree with that, and I suggest that you should change your thinking. You must be upbeat, positive, smiling, energetic, engaged throughout this process, otherwise you will not win. As we're going to learn later, attitude is everything. So, learn the rules, practice a lot, keep practicing over and over and over again, and you will then have a huge, very high likelihood of winning the game. Now I want to show you a very, very simple formula, so simple that even I can remember it. Here it is. P plus P equals P. That means preparation plus practice equals power. This is what I really want you folks to understand, is that you want power in this game. You don't want the other person to have all the power. You want to have power at least on an equal footing, if not better. So always prepare, practice, and that will give you the power you need to be a successful negotiator. As I said before, very often they bring up this subject much too early in the game. They say, what kind of money are you looking for? Or what compensation do you require? Or how much did you make in your last job? Now, in my opinion, these questions always come prematurely, or almost always prematurely, and they are used as a screening mechanism. Do not let the company use money as a screening mechanism. You see, what companies do is they say, let's find some candidates who earn between 100 and 120, and that's the kind of person we'll interview. I think that's insane. What I think makes a lot more sense is, let's find the very best person for this position, and then we'll pay them what they deserve. We'll pay them what they're worth. That's a much, much better way to hire people. So if there are any hiring managers on the program today, please hear me when I say you've got to stop screening people purely on the basis of money. Instead, people should be evaluated for what they can contribute and how good a fit they are for the position. But if you are asked this question, and you will be asked, these are some sample responses. Look at the first one. I think salary is a very important topic, and I would be more than happy to discuss it once a mutual interest has been established. Then get back to discussing your accomplishments. These are the accomplishments that are relevant to the company's needs. Number two, your company has a very good reputation, and I'm sure the compensation package will be fair enough to keep me motivated and productive. By the way, what is the salary range for this position? You see, here's my point. They brought up the subject, right? They raised the issue of money. So you have fair game. It's fair game for you to say, well, what is the salary range? And here's what's interesting, folks. Here's what I've learned from experience. If you actually ask them, in other words, if you turn the question around back on them and say, well, by the way, what is the range? I have learned that at least 50% of the time, the employer will tell you. But the funny thing is that most candidates don't feel that they have the right to ask the question. So the point is here, ask the question, and 50% of the time, you'll probably get an answer, which is great, because then you'll know where you stand. Number three, based on my accomplishments and contributions, I would like to be paid at the same level as other employees of my caliber. What is the salary range for a person of my caliber? So if you will actually memorize these responses, you will see that they work very, very often, and they work very well. We're going to continue now with a couple of other responses even before the offer. In other words, when they're trying to bring up salary prematurely, these are some additional responses that you can give. The one on top says, regarding compensation, I'm flexible and willing to negotiate once we have developed a mutual interest. Or, if we decide that I'm the right person for this job, I'm sure we will be able to come to an agreement on compensation. And always get back to discussing your accomplishments so you can continue building your value. Another response is, at this time, I'm most interested in determining if I'm the right person for this job. If there's a fit, I'm sure salary won't be an issue. And then get back to discussing your accomplishments. Now, if this is later in the game, maybe it's the third or the second interview, and you've already been talking to these people a lot, and you've had several meetings, you could actually say at that point, oh, are you making me an offer? If so, what salary range did you have in mind? But again, only do this if this is later in the process, like a second or third or fourth interview. It would be silly to do this in the very first interview. Okay, moving on. It's important as part of your preparation to know your numbers in advance. What I mean by that is you have a need column and a want column. Now, this is just an example. It could be $1 million, it could be $50,000, but whatever it is, put your need in the left-hand column and your wants in the right-hand column. So the need column is what you would accept. In other words, if it's a great job with people, great culture, it's a good step for your career, then fine. This is the bottom line you're willing to accept, but nothing less. If it's less than this, you walk away. On the right-hand column, it's what you'd love to get. This would be the ideal. You'd love to shoot high. You'd love to get a higher compensation, more vacation, and all the other things that you see listed there in your right-hand column. Now, again, these are only examples, but the point is you've got to have a strategy. You must know your numbers in advance. So do some research, do some planning and preparation, know what you're willing to trade and what you're not. Make your own list. Now, as you recall, I said earlier that the old salary has nothing to do with your new salary. I would like you to tattoo this onto your forehead so that you will never, never, never forget it. This is huge. If you get this, and if you really understand it, it will open up the door for you to make far, far more compensation from now into the future. There is a trap that people fall into, which is that they think that their future salary is related to their first salary or their current salary. It is not true. Instead of going out looking for a job thinking, oh, I hope I can get the same salary I have now, or I hope I might get another 5 or 10%, don't do that. Instead say, I'm going to find the company and the job where I can make the greatest contribution, where I can make the highest impact, and then I'll be paid more because I'll be worth more. And I could tell you many, many stories of clients who have literally doubled their salary in one job change, or maybe added 50%, or maybe added 30%. But whatever the situation is, you've got to go in with an open mind, without a preset limit. In other words, you're paid based on your level of contribution and the impact and the value you bring, not based on some random number from the past. You've got to hold your ground and keep this position whenever you're in a negotiation. It has nothing to do with what you're going to earn in the future. Now, you might be thinking, well, okay, I can negotiate salary, and I can probably negotiate the start date, and I might be able to negotiate for some cell phone or laptop, but you know what? I want to make it clear that everything is negotiable. Everything? Yes, everything. You would not believe the things that I've helped clients negotiate for. The question is, what is important to you? What is most important? If it's vacation, fine. If it's having the right equipment, great. If it's having your own work office, okay. If it's being reimbursed for expenses, fine. If it's being able to work with flex time and telecommuting, that's okay. Whatever your situation is, you know and only you know what your priorities are, so you've got to list them and fight hard to get them. Of course, you're not going to negotiate for all these things. What you would do is you would pick your top 3 or 4 priorities and then negotiate hard for those. But always remember to negotiate salary first before you get into any of these other items. Now, in the first round negotiations, when you've been selected, there are 2 vital questions that I think you must ask before you start any negotiating. And here they are. Question 1, why did you select me? Question 2, what is your compensation philosophy? These are amazing questions, and they will really help you to negotiate with more strength and success. Why did you select me? Well, if they can tell you, we selected you because you have this, and we selected you because we think you're the best at that, and we were really impressed when you told us the story about this. You see, now they are almost buying into your value. It's almost like they're selling you back to yourself. You can see they're nodding their head. They're smiling because they know they're getting someone with so much value to bring. That helps you to position yourself at a higher level of compensation. Question 2, what is your compensation philosophy? Well, here's an example. One company might say, well, we like to hire everybody at the cheapest level possible. We always find our employees based on the lowest salary. Well, okay, that's one thing. What if they say to you, well, at this company, we really believe that we want to find the best. We only hire the best of the best. We pay them what they're worth, but we hire the best. We hire people who want to change the world. We hire people who have the greatest level of experience and impact in our industry. If they say things like that to you, then you know you're starting from a totally different baseline as compared to the question one. So please try to ask these questions at the moment when they tell you that they've selected you as their top candidate. Now, let's say that you have gone through the negotiation at the initial stage, and now they're starting to talk to you about money, which is that they've actually made you an offer. So if they say to you, okay, Debbie, look, we have interviewed many people. We've narrowed down our field to only 3 people, and we've actually narrowed down now just to you. We think you are the best candidate, and we're prepared to make you an offer. We would like to offer you X. Let's say it's $150,000. Okay, so now the game is afoot, right? It's off and running. They've actually put out there a number. They might even have said to you what the total package is, including benefits and so forth. So when you hear all this, write down the details. Just write down whatever they say, and then say to them, and do I have this complete? You're telling me that the salary would be X, the health plan is worth Y. I'm also going to get this. I'm also going to get Z, and I'm going to get this, this, and this, and this. Is that the full offer? I just want to make sure I have all the details. They might say, yes, that's the full offer, or they might say, oh, no, I forgot. We're also going to throw in a cell phone, laptop, and a company car. Okay? Whatever it is, you write it down. Write down all the details, repeat it again, and say, do I have it correct now? Do I have all the details? And they say, yes, now you have it all. At that moment, we need to get into some play acting. Yes, it's play acting. And what you'll do at that point is break eye contact, look down at the floor or look down at your shoe, and act kind of disappointed and perplexed. The look on your face should be one of mild disappointment and of being perplexed. In your mind, you're thinking, how can they make me an offer so low after I've told them all my accomplishment stories? I don't understand why they would think that I might work for that level when they know that I'm a top professional in my field. This is not what you're saying. This is what's going through your mind, and your face should reflect those sentiments. Then, look at number 2 on this, the second bullet. Remain silent until the interviewer responds. You know, the interviewer basically only has 3 options. They can either sit there in silence forever, or they can say to you something like, well, I might be able to do a little bit better, but I don't know, what were you thinking? Or they might say, well, you don't seem very happy with the offer. What did you have in mind? But these are the kinds of things that you would hear from the employer. Now, remember what I said earlier. They hate silence. They hate a vacuum. So they're going to be uncomfortable and nervous a bit themselves, and they will respond. After they do respond, you then take the stage again, and you would say something like, well, based on the level of contribution I offer and the commitment that I'm prepared to make, I really believe that your offer is on the conservative side. Or you could say, well, in view of the accomplishments that I've shared and my 15 years of related experience, frankly, your offer is not at all what I was expecting. And then you could add a percentage, whether it's 10%, 15%, 20%, 50%, whatever you think is appropriate. Or if you don't like using percentages, you could use a dollar figure if it seems appropriate. So state your case and then wait in silence to hear what they have to say. Okay? So if the employer says, we would like to offer you $150,000 plus this and that and the other thing, you would pause, break eye contact, act disappointed and perplexed, wait to hear what they say, and then respond with one of these comments that you see here under the second bullet on this page 19. Never accept or reject an offer on the spot. Always ask for at least 24 hours and maybe even up to 1 week to consider it depending on the situation. Now, folks, am I asking you to memorize these quotations? Yes, I am. I am suggesting that you memorize these lines word for word. Why? Because they come from 2 decades or more of experience and refining this process. Does it work all the time? No, but it does work a lot more than you would think, and it works more often than anything else. So I'm suggesting that you stay very, very tight, very close to the script and not veer off the script. The closer you stay to the script, the more successful you'll be and the more money you will earn. The more you veer away from this script, the less money you will earn and the less successful you will be in the negotiations. That's my opinion. That's one man's opinion. Let's look at this next slide, which is called the real value of an offer. Here I am telling you about how to make more money and more money, but the flip side of the story is don't be too quick to reject an offer just because the base salary might seem a little conservative. So here's an example. If someone offers you, for example, $120,000, you might say, oh, forget it, I'm not taking that job. I've earned more than that in the past. That's way too low. Forget it, I'm walking away. Well, maybe, but if you take some time to look at the whole story, you might be pleasantly surprised. For example, once you add in the health plan and all the other benefits, it could be worth at least 35% of the base salary. Then you add on, in addition, maybe a bonus or commissions. You could be looking at a compensation package that's at least 175, maybe 200. As an example, now, I'm not saying this is relevant to you. I'm saying this is just an example. So always consider the entire story, the big number, the whole picture before you judge the compensation. Now, let's get into second round negotiations. Let's say you've had your offer and you've told them that you think it's on the conservative side and can't they do any better, and they might even come up with a bigger number. Okay, great. That means you're still going to go away and think about it at least one day or up to even a week, depending on the situation. And then I want you to get back to the hiring manager, not human resources, and say, this is a great opportunity, and I'm excited about working with you, or I'm excited about joining your company. I'm inclined to accept your offer. However, there are 3 or maybe 4 items I want to discuss, or possibly you could use the word negotiate with you. If we can reach agreement on these items, I will be prepared to accept your offer today. Now look at the words that are underlined. Inclined, however, and today. These are the magic words. These words can clinch the deal for you. Obviously, you don't want to use this strategy unless you actually are prepared to accept the offer today. But you need to think that through and compare it against your other options. The second line, which is, I'm inclined to accept your offer, however, that shows that you're really interested, except there's some things you want them to change or add to make the offer more attractive. So don't do this with human resources unless you work in human resources. Obviously, if you're a human resources executive, then your boss is going to be the head of human resources. But unless you work in human resources, then you'll want to be talking directly to the hiring manager. This is a great opportunity. I'm excited about working with you. I'm inclined to accept your offer. However, there are 4 items I would like to negotiate with you, and if we can reach agreement on these items, I'll be prepared to accept your offer today. Conduct this negotiation, if possible, in person. You can always sell yourself better in person. So even if it means driving a distance to get back to the company, you should do that. Obviously, if they're on another coast or in another country, you won't be able to do that. You could do it by phone or by Skype. Try not to do this by email. You can always sell yourself best in person, second best on Skype, third best on telephone. Now, I hope this is clear. And yes, I do want you to stick to the script very, very closely. Stick to the script very, very closely. When you come to comparing offers, as I said earlier, you may be fortunate enough to have more than one offer. So here's how you can do it in terms of making an analysis, a comparison, and making your final choice. I actually worked with a physician who had 3 offers from 3 different hospital systems, and she was extremely confused and overwhelmed. We did this analysis, and within 5 minutes, she knew exactly which was the right company to go to. Now, this is page 1. It continues on the next page, but I just want you to look at these items and look at how we rank them 1 to 10 on the right-hand side. It's a very simple form to use, and it works very, very well. Here's the second page, which is just a continuation of these criteria. Okay, personal factors. And then finally, company factors. You can add criteria if there are some missing that you would like to add, or you can just fill them in here where it says Other. But I can guarantee you that when you have 2 or more offers, this format is a great tool to use to compare and then to finally choose the best possible offer for you. Okay. Finally, folks, I want to underline this message that I said earlier. Attitude and assumptions. 80% of the outcome of your salary negotiations will be determined by your attitude and assumptions. This is really true. I've had so many people fight me on this. They say things to me like, oh, it's not worth negotiating. What's the point? Just to get an extra $5,000? But you see, they're missing the point. If they negotiate well and get a lot more money for the job they're after now, that means in the second and third job, they'll be making far more money starting at a much higher baseline, and your compensation will grow geometrically for the rest of your career. Or they say, I don't like to negotiate. It makes me uncomfortable. It doesn't work. Well, what that says to me is that they've never tried it, at least not tried it the right way. So to just make a blanket statement which says, I'm not going to do it, it doesn't work, is just plain silly. So please don't be one of those people. Don't assume that your negotiation will fail. Don't assume that you will intimidate or alienate the employer. Remember, the things we all talked about earlier in this presentation about the erroneous assumptions, the mistakes people make, the reasons they don't negotiate, they're just fiction. And I believe you must negotiate. So you have to have a very positive attitude, and you have to assume that you will win. Or as they say in sales, assume the sale. If you go in with that attitude and use the strategies and the techniques and the phrases that I've offered you here today, you will absolutely be able to negotiate for much higher compensation, not just now, but for the rest of your working life. Finally, because you've been such a good audience and you've taken the time today to join us on this presentation, I want to offer you something which is really very, very valuable. These are free bonuses for ExecuNet participants, and if you will look right here, you'll see that there are 4 very high-value items that I'm offering you totally free. There is no catch. You just simply go to this link, careerbookbonuses.com, and you will there be able to access these very valuable bonuses. I guarantee you, you'll learn a lot, and you'll find a lot of impact with these tools, which you won't find anywhere else. So I hope this has been helpful for all of you. I hope you will consider everything I've said very seriously, and I hope that you will be bold in adopting these strategies so that you can negotiate your compensation and win the game. Thank you very much.
Ford, thank you very much. Let's get right to some questions, and I want to start with one, and each of these has been restated in numerous ways while you were speaking, and I'm going to apologize in advance. I will not get to everyone's questions. Some are quite individual, and for those, you might want to connect with Ford afterwards, but let me start with this one. Regarding the situation, Ford, where you're simply seeking, not simply, but you're seeking a raise within your current organization. Maybe you want to advance to the next level, or you want to negotiate something greater than your current salary and comp while you're in your current role. How does any of your advice change or shape to that scenario?
That's a great question, and the answer is this. You still have to build your perceived value. You still have to demonstrate and prove to the employer why you should be paid more. You don't just go to your boss and say, okay, I've been here a year now, I want more money. They don't care. What they care about is what are you doing for them? How are you adding value to the company on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis? So here's what I suggest. I suggest that when you are in a job, you keep a list, like a scratch pad or a computer Word document, a list of all the things that you have contributed, where you've gone above and beyond, where you've demonstrated real value and brought some accomplishments to the job. I don't mean just the daily normal responsibilities. I mean things that bring real value, added value, and go above and beyond the normal scope of responsibilities. Keep that list. At the end of each month, formalize the list and either share it with your boss or put it in a file, a folder, so that you can bring these pages with you when it comes time to negotiate your compensation. That way, when the employer says, well, why should we give you a raise? What have you done for us lately? You'll be able to say, what have I done for you? Here's what I've done for you. And you'll show them, 12 pages of long lists of bulleted items of all the incredible ways you've added value into your job, into the department, and into the company. Then they pretty much have to give you a raise.
Right. And I'm intuiting in what you're saying, Ford, that we should not feel limited by the structure of, okay, there's an annual or a semi-annual review. In other words, when you've, quote, got it together, that's when you should, with great confidence, move forward and seek higher comp or salary.
That's true. That's true. And also, Tony, I'll say one more thing. I believe that people should always be looking for jobs. In other words, always keep your eyes and ears open. I don't mean you have to go out and send out resumes every day, but I mean keep your eyes and ears open, keep your finger on the pulse of the market, know what you're worth, know where you stand, gauge the market and your own value in the marketplace. Even go on some interviews from time to time to keep yourself fresh and to know what you're worth. This will also give you added momentum and confidence.
Mm-hmm. Now, our friends listening today, Ford, take your point that past salary isn't really connected with where you're going and where your salary needs or where you want it to be. But how can we gauge what a comparable or fair salary range is? There are, for example, lots of websites, salary.com, payscale.com, and others. There's also personal networking. Is there some, quote, definitive way to really get a baseline for what you, at the minimum, should be earning?
Sure. So there's a couple of strategies, and I think it needs to be a combination of things. Like I said before, go out on interviews from time to time, even negotiate salaries from time to time. Whether you take it or not, that will help you to gauge where you stand. Second, talk to career coaches like me, talk to human resource professionals at other companies, not at your company, because they can answer your question, especially if it's a friend or someone that you're kind of acquainted with. You can also use the salary websites, as the person mentioned. You can also do networking and talk to other people who have similar jobs to what you're going after, and they'll give you a range. They'll tell you what the job should pay. So as you can see, it's a combination of things. It's not just one source of information.
Right. Let's talk about the 21 rules a bit. And the first question around this one is, and this is a real current from our line of questions today, there's confidence, right? And then there's insolence. What my Jewish Bubby would say is chutzpah. So,
right.
How are you suggesting that sticking to the script will help you sound and be confident versus insolent? Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's like I said before. This is not about boasting and bragging. It's not about puffing yourself up and seeming, arrogant. Not at all. This is merely using a proven formula and stating facts. If you're in sales, for example, and let's say that in the last 12 months you opened 24 new corporate accounts representing $16 million in new revenue, which doubled the department's revenue or whatever. That's a fact. If that's true, you should state it and not feel that you're bragging. Bragging and boasting comes beyond the truth. I don't believe in lying, and I don't believe in puffing up or boasting. I do believe in stating the facts very confidently. So, yes, to answer the person's question, if they use this approach, this strategy, and these techniques, I do not think they will come across as arrogant or insolent. I think they will come across as professional and savvy, but fair.
Wonderful. So as we look down that list of 21, are there particular rules that executives tend to stumble over the most? What do we seem to overlook that, A, holds us back? And second, what do we seem to gravitate to that makes the greatest difference?
Well, look, some of the most important ones that stand out to me and where I think where a lot of people get tripped up are the ones like, for example, you can only win at negotiation if you're willing to walk away. Mm-hmm. Here, if you've been out of work for 6 months and, you just sold your car to, I still think you have to have an attitude of confidence. It's like fake it till you make it. So you never want to seem desperate, and you always want to feel confident but not cocky. So one of the rules that trips people up is you can only win if you're willing to walk away. Another one that tends to trip people up is the one that says you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate for. a lot of executives feel kind of entitled, frankly, like, hey, I've been working out here in the business world. I've been making hundreds of thousands of dollars for 10 years. Answer, so what? So what? Nobody cares. All they care about is, what are you going to do for me? How are you going to help my company? So you still have to share your accomplishment stories and demonstrate the kind of value you can bring. These are some of the things that tend to trip people up. And the other one is that people get really impatient. Remember the rule that says to take your time and stay steady and disciplined and so forth?
Sure.
Well, yes, you have to do that and not sound impatient and not seem like you're at the end of your rope.
Ford, is it any different for women than men? You've worked with so many executives. Do women negotiate starting salary as men do? And are there certain nuances between the genders that we should be sensitive to when we are on the side of wanting a salary? Not the hiring manager, it's not what I'm talking about. What's your take on that?
I think it's a good question. My belief is that women and men can and should negotiate the same, using these same tools, these same phrases. I have been cognizant of this issue, and everything that's in this presentation is gender neutral. Now, with that being said, there are many women who have been acculturated or raised in a certain way that this feels uncomfortable to them. I mean, certainly this is uncomfortable to many men too, but I would say more women seem to state their discomfort with this approach than men. And while I can understand it and I can have empathy for it, I'm urging the women to do it anyway and to be strong, and I think they will actually be surprised at how well it can go for them. So again, I'm urging the women to try it, to don't be shy, and to realize that all these techniques and strategies are gender neutral. They certainly work for women just as well as they work for men.
Okay, fantastic. Let's take a kind of a specialized situation, and I'm going to bring it up because enough of our listeners today have brought it up to me. A startup. It's a different kind of comp, usually or often, and again, is it really simply an assessment for, with confidence, of your needs and wants and sticking to that, or should you be sensitive to other things when the opportunity and the fit really look great, and yet what they're telling you your salary or comp will be don't look so great? Is there anything there you want to share?
Sure. Well, remember what I said, that compensation is only part of fit. I mean, here we are in a salary negotiation seminar or webinar, but I'm telling you flat out, and I said in one of the previous slides, that salary or compensation is only part of the story. What's most important really is fit. So if you're in an entrepreneurial situation or a startup situation, then the people seem great, the product seems great, the opportunity seems great, the timing seems great. If everything is wonderful, but they're not paying a good base salary, okay, take it into consideration, factor it in with all the other items of fit, and if it still feels like the right situation for you and the great situation, then move forward.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about recruiters and the role they play. What I'm hearing through our chats is they demand, in many cases, that executives reveal what they really want in terms of salary or comp.
Yes.
Now, your advice has been, I think, don't reveal too much too soon and let someone else do the revealing first. Yes. And yet, if you're in that bind and you desperately want to move forward, let's say you're out of work and you've got the attention of a recruiter who seems to have a good sense about you, how do you sort of finesse that situation?
Okay, good question. You will remember at the early part of this presentation, I said these rules apply when you're talking directly to an employer, not to a recruiter, right? Mm-hmm. So my answer is, when you're dealing with a recruiter, the rules change with regard to telling them your compensation. Now remember, we're talking about an external recruiter here, not an internal recruiter.
Right.
Someone can call you and say, Tony, hi, I'm a recruiter, and I'm calling to tell you about a job opportunity. First thing you should say then is, excuse me, who do you work for? If they say, oh, I work for Korn Ferry, we are a global executive search firm, and we've been retained by such and such company to find, well, that's one thing. But if they say, oh, well, I am a recruiter here in the human resources department of XYZ company, that's not a recruiter, that's an employer. So you have to separate someone who works for the employer versus someone who works externally in a recruiting firm. That's the first thing you have to understand, and you got to find out who do they work for. Now, if the person says, I am an external recruiter, I work for Korn Ferry or Heidrick & Struggles or whoever it is, then the whole game shifts, because that recruiter has every incentive to get you more money, whereas an internal person inside the company has every incentive to get you less money. So when you're talking to a reputable external recruiter, yes, you can go ahead and share your compensation history or what you're looking to earn. You can also ask them what the job pays, and they should reveal it to you. So it's a different kind of conversation when you're dealing with an external recruiter. I hope that's now clear.
Yes, thank you. And I think this also addresses another question I've been getting, which has to do with getting to a hiring manager. So you're saying if you're dealing with an external recruiter, rely upon them to broker or help you broker the negotiation. Is that fair?
Yes, to an extent. However,
Okay.
I have to give you a caveat, which is this. Only you can negotiate best for your own compensation. So I don't believe in letting the recruiter do all the talking. I do believe in collaborating with the recruiter, with the executive recruiter. But at the end of the day, if it was me, I would make sure that I had the final conversation with the employer on the negotiation of salary. The recruiter can help. The recruiter can tee it up. The recruiter can collaborate. They can even be on the line during the final negotiation. But in my world, it's the employee, him or herself, who should be having the final conversation with the employer about money.
Great advice. We have come just past the top of the hour. Ford, thank you so much for your insight, for sharing your time with us today. Thank you all for your attention. You know how precious that is to me. And thank you, as always, for your marvelous questions. I learned a lot just reading them and, of course, listening to the masterclass presenters' answers. So, Ford, before we officially wrap up today, do you have a parting thought or two you want to share with our listeners?
Well, sure. Again, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I understand and I have empathy. I know there's a tough job market. I know people feel reluctant to negotiate when jobs are so scarce and hard to come by. And yet, in my opinion, this is the time when you have to be most bold, when you have to be, most committed and confident. I think people should really take stock and understand that the way they've come across means something. The precedents they set, the perception that they are projecting is so important in the negotiation. I've given you a lot of words and phrases to use here today, but the truth is that probably 70% of the negotiation will be conducted in nonverbal cues. So it's all about confidence and posture. It's about attitude. It's about assumptions. So you need to take a hard look in the mirror and then be bold. Try to use these strategies and techniques with the right attitude, and I truly believe that you'll be far more successful in commanding a lot more compensation.
Great advice. Thank you again, Ford, and thank you all again. I look forward to seeing you all at the next masterclass. Bye for now.
Thank you, Tony. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ford. Bye-bye.